Herzlich willkommen. Schön, dass du wieder da bist. Heute
Hello and welcome to everybody who is interested in chronology, criticism or alternate history. Today we'll have a video separated in 3 parts. First, we will visit some old architecture in Mettlach, Saarland, West Germany. In the second part, I will bore you with some mudflood pics, mainly from stolenhistory.net. Unbelievably good page. Sign in order to have full access and to make some awesome digs. We will discuss further content from this page in later videos. And in the third part, I collected some footage in Trier by motorcycle. Way too much to visit for one video, because Trier is regarding to Greco-Roman architecture, the heaven on earth. Really full of pomp and splendor. And there we have also architectural evidence for the mud flood. Enjoy this video, subscribe to this channel, and lots of fun with the development of your third eye.
Viel Spaß mit dem Video, lasst mir ein Like da, abonniert den Kanal.
Here we are in Mettlach at the river Saar, where the two families, Willerer and Boch, which were married before several hundred years. I don't go into details because most of us give a shit of the official records or narratives of the industrial families. My opinion, they've managed to occupy this whole old world industrial complex. Nearly 2/3 of this town is nothing else than an old complex to produce ceramic products as toilets, tiles, tableware and so on. And look at this portal, nothing else than an artwork of amazing architecture. And in this part of this town we see lots of Gothic and Greco-Roman constructions like the St. Joseph Cathedral or the Ludwinus Church. Later in this video, and here a circled plate. It seems to be something missing. I have the feeling, I don't know exactly, because on the other rounded parts of this building there are faces, there are statues or something else. And as we see here in this gable, I call it so, the rounded arch gables, there are so many iterations, levels and sculptural geometry. It is completely unnecessary. Here we have the old tower house that called today. This is the grave of the holy Ludwinus. Yeah, and the entrance is locked up. He was buried on the sea, or rather on the river Saar. And the legend says that his corpse was washed ashore exactly here where they've built this tower. Today his body and relics are stored in the Ludwinus Cathedral up the hill. The religious people make every year a procession or a parade carrying the remains of him through the village. And what we see on the other side of my perspective is a sarcophagus in which his remains were buried for a long time.
Älteste sakrale Gebäude des Saarlandes ist über 1000 Jahre.
A few infos about the 1000-year-old tower, one of the oldest structures in Saarland, the chapel of Saint Ludwinus. This building, we are making an important contribution to the preservation of a structure inextricably linked to Willerer and Boch 1748. Yes, and here we see the Litvinus Church. Just a few impressions. First building was just built for 48 years and then demolished 1899 and rebuilt this beauty without permission of the German Empire. Blah, blah, blah. The only thing I don't have read was a fire that have destroyed the first building. We know all this cover-up stuff. If you want to have some further informations of fire stories, check the channel of my lunch break at YouTube. Mud-flooded streets, besides huge buildings that would have needed at least paved roads to get construction done, portals, rounded arcs, entrances and windows below ground level. We see half sunken windows on ground floor, and every time there are works on drainage or subterranean level, we can clearly see a hidden or lost floor or story. And very often the windows and entrances are richly decorated with pillars and other completely unnecessary ornamentation. The phenomenon is visible on each continent of Terra, and everybody who has ever built anything knows how much effort must be used to plan when will which material being utilized by who and how much it costs to build errors or fails. It can only be explained by an event which left over tons of sediment and buried the ex-ground floors. This, let's call it Cataclysm, must have happened anytime between the 1600s and the 1700s, my opinion. And in the old photographs from between 1850 to 1900 we see this mudded or buried streets, even if there are monstrosities of buildings on each side of the roads that would have needed working roads in order to be built. The argument that it's necessary to get coal in the cellars is nonsense. After less than 1 minute of thinking, visit stolenhistory.net to get lots of threads which are dealing with this topic. Because if the wheels of the buggies and carts of the people, they would sunk into the streets under load with all this blockwork on top of the carts. It wouldn't be really possible to construct anything. On every rainy day you have huge problems to get the stones to where they are needed, and it could be really an event of high load or disload of the electricity of the atmosphere. We don't know exactly what has happened, but it was a huge event, a global event, or an event that occurs on all of that has been occurred on all of our realm. And this was Paris in the 1970 years, practically a city under the city. And no, these photographs aren't fake. Related to this, it is unbelievably interesting to Google the catacombs of Paris. Millions of human skeletons can be visited by tourists in the underworld of Paris, which is partially accessible to the tourists. Yes, and here we can also see how much excavation must be done to dig out the ancient ground level, and that there are whole stories of 14 feet which are visible after the excavation work. The same depth at these buildings of late Middle Age or Renaissance time supposedly as we had to dig out in case of Rome, Greece or Egypt. Very artful work on the street level. Artful handicraft in canalization makes unbelievably much sense. And here we have paintings of 80, 36. They're missing also 3 to 4 meters. You've only seen the grand pillars which were remaining from the original structure. These pictures were also photographed in Russia. So we have a phenomenon which occurs worldwide. We can see it in Australia as well as in the United States and all over Eurasia. And here we have seen or are watching some contemporary paintings and can verify that the ground level isn't fitting proportionally to the rest of the ancient ground floor, which is mainly buried. And the question is, why should the artist do this each time? He used a very skilled and realistic painting style in order to provide nearly photorealistic pictures. I'm convinced his intention was to display architect as he had seen it, as it was and as he had seen it. He shows exactly what we can regard all over Terra. There's also the painter Piranesi from Italy. In his pictures we can see a culture of horse and buggy people who have re-established or revived the building. The argument that the streets were not paved in order to protect the wagons and the horses' hooves is ridiculous, because I'm not able to build such long-lasting and beautiful structures if my wagon sinks in and the load on each rainy day is too heavy. Piranesi, for example, lived from 1720 until 1795, and he had surely painted what he had seen. What is a strong evidence that the main part of this cataclysm was before he was born. Maybe there were multiple catastrophes which leads to an extinction of the old world civilization. Also the Sphinx, old pyramids of Inca and Maya cultures, and the Moais of the Easter Island culture. Every time we see 2 to 5 meters of material that buried these sites, here in Easter Island or New Zealand as well as in Egypt. The academic scholar says in unison that the centuries lead to the burial with sediment, but the depth from which they were digged out are plus or minus the same. We've seen the Sphinx under 3 to 6 meters, as we have seen the Forum Romanum in Rome, but also much younger architectural structures from Renaissance time under the same depth of sand and gravel. It makes no sense that they are the same depth that we have to dig out. Sure, the excavation depths change here and there, but as we see on these Middle American pyramid pictures and these Olmec sets, it is actually the same height or depth under which we find the artifacts or structures. Really intriguing. This structure is, don't know, at least 25 meters high. This is the so-called Basilica in Trier, one of the oldest cities in Europe according to the mainstream narrative. Here behind the Willy Brandt Plaza we see Greco-Roman, respective neoclassical style. Really impressive what they've managed to build. Let's enjoy some moments, the really impressive architectural styles. I have tons of these buildings in my direct neighborhood. It is unbelievable that I've never thought about the impossibility of the construction of such buildings before, and that it takes so much time to me to recognize what we're dealing with. So let's enjoy some pictures and then I show you some Mettlach evidence at the Basilica.
Wahnsinnig eindrucksvoll. Die Basilika.
By the way, interesting or really interesting side fact, you can see it must be done some work on the drainage. Very good work with some illumination spots in the pavement. But hoppala, what do we see here? An arc with a clearly visible, later bricked up ancient entrance or window just below ground level. Strange. Also, who can tell if this is the bottom or lowest point? The construction can be easily 2 meters higher or deeper of this building, and if this was the original door, is to be questioned because of the other color of the pavement and the other size of the door in relation to the arc, which could be seen above. So yeah, lots of modification work on this building in later times, and yes, tons of more questions that have to be asked because we have the right to know the truth.
Ja, macht überhaupt gar keinen Sinn, hier einen Stützbogen hinzubauen. Warte, ich gehe mal aus dem Gegenlicht. Das macht ja überhaupt gar keinen Sinn. Einfach, ist das Bodenniveau? Wissen wir nicht. Ja, macht überhaupt gar keinen Sinn, hier einen Stützbogen hinzubauen. Warte, ich gehe mal aus dem Gegenlicht.
And there we can see the amphitheater. What we may will visit in later videos. Roman building, sure. Nowadays used for concerts and other events. Yeah. And here we can see Poseidon, brother of Zeus and Hades, but much more spectacular as these Greco-Roman statues is this splendor, beauty, right? Wow. Wow. Hundreds of the neoclassical buildings can be visited here in Trier. This is the east ending of the structure. What is exactly displayed on this ornamentation is unknown to me. And yes, 135-degree gable on whole of the basilica, and these beautiful replacements of the tech, I guess. Also the color and all the stuff is not from the old world but from the renewal work. And in Trier you can see the beauty of the actual beauty of the ancient time, I guess. This is really the east ending. The other side was the south ending, and doesn't matter. Here you can see also the beautiful architecture with all these iterations and the overwhelming amount of geometrical unnecessarities. It's completely unbelievable that horse and buggy people have built this before 300-400 years. It is not believable. And here we are at the Peters Plaza in my hometown Mettlach, where we can see lots of old world structures. I can easily work with lots of zoom because the objective of the camera is placed in oil. It has already 8 years, the cam, but yeah, it's a good one. Very impressive style that we can see here. What was this just built by the reason of honor to the craftsman, or was there much more purpose behind this geometrical overkill used in these buildings? It was unbelievably difficult to build, especially for people or a culture that has no running water, no sewing system, no electricity, no machinery. Also on this building of the driving school, we have lots of 135-degree gables, which are visible worldwide, as they've just copied, or they were worldwide the same culture or multiple civilizations that were connected among each other. I cannot believe that we see the same depictions, the same statues, the same styles, the same ornamentations all over the planet, the same sandstone work. It makes no sense related to the official narrative that has been given by the authorities, especially regarding the US. Makes absolutely no sense. And yes, as aren't buildings, much more artworks, and even the quality of building all over the world is unbelievably high. They have built as they wanted to build lasting for rather centuries than decades, or even much longer. So yes, you have to renew the doors, the windows, maybe also the roof. Yeah, sure. But the cellars aren't wet. They are the stone is from high quality. It's just completely another work than today. And this is the St. Peter's Church, as it is called today. These multi-stage portals with tons of iterations, just to manufacture the sandstone in this shape in order to last centuries, not only decades, is surreal. 2 towers of the backside of the building, and in front 1 big tower. And I've spoken to someone who was involved in the renewal process of this building, and he told me that the top of the tower is 80 centimeters displaced to the center of its own, and from this perspective you can easily see the lean angle of the roof. Yo, this was my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next week with some impressions from Brussels. Give me a like, subscribe to this channel, and have a wonderful life.